She had everything the world promised would bring happiness, freedom, success, independence, and choice. But something inside her remained unsettled. She had traveled the world, dined in the finest places, and met some of the most influential people, yet every night she would lie awake wondering why her heart felt so heavy. She was surrounded by noise, but within her, there was only silence. Her soul was tired. She couldn't name the feeling, but it followed her everywhere. A deep ache, a hunger for something real. One day, she looked at me and asked the most unexpected question. What does peace feel like to you? Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried pain. She wasn't asking for fun. She was searching. I didn't rush to answer her. I paused because how do you explain something as deep as peace when the world has turned it into a product to sell? I could have talked about therapy or meditation or escaping into nature. But what she was searching for couldn't be found in a weekend getaway. So I simply told her the truth. Peace, to me, is knowing I don't have to carry everything alone. It's knowing that there's a creator who knows my heart better than I do, and that he's in control, even when everything around me isn't. She looked surprised. That's when I told her, this peace comes from Islam. I didn't lecture her. I didn't throw facts at her. I just shared the quiet parts of my life, the moments no one sees, the tears I wipe after a heartfelt dua, the stillness I feel when I bow my head in sujood, the trust that flows through me when I whisper, I leave it in Allah's hands. I told her about the power of prayer, of knowing that even if the whole world walks away, Allah remains. That even in heartbreak, there's wisdom. Even in struggle, there's mercy. She listened, not with her ears, but with her soul. Then something happened that neither of us expected. One morning, just before sunrise, she heard the call to prayer, the adhan. It wasn't planned. She had simply left her hotel window open while visiting a Muslim country. But when she heard those words echo across the sky, something in her broke. She stood still, goosebumps on her arms and tears streaming down her face. She couldn't explain why, but she said it felt like her heart had finally been spoken to, like someone was calling her home. He didn't convert that day, but a shift happened. She started asking more questions, not about the rules of Islam, but about the love in it, about the peace it brings, about why, in the middle of chaos, Muslims still turn to the one who allowed it, and how that isn't weakness but strength. And the more she learned, the more her soul began to soften. It wasn't the knowledge that pulled her in, it was the calm, the silence in the middle of the storm, the calm she had never known until she found it in Islam. Sometimes, guidance doesn't begin with answers, it begins with questions. And sometimes the most powerful dawah isn't spoken, it's lived. Peace isn't a destination, it's a presence. And the day she experienced it, not through theory, but through witnessing its reality, was the day her journey toward truth quietly began. She sat across from me in silence, her eyes searching for something even she couldn't explain. After a while, she whispered, "You always seem so calm, like the world isn't weighing on you. How?" That question didn't surprise me. I had heard it before, especially from people who lived in fast, loud cities, constantly chasing something. But this time, it felt different. She wasn't asking out of curiosity. She was asking because she was tired. Tired of running, tired of pretending, tired of smiling while breaking inside. And in that moment, I didn't give her a lecture. I didn't recite quotes or mention theology. I just told her the truth. I found peace the day I stopped trying to control everything and started trusting the one who controls it all. I told her that before Islam settled in my heart, I too chased peace in all the wrong places. In relationships, distractions, success, even isolation. But nothing lasted. Nothing filled that quiet emptiness. It was only when I started to understand who Allah is, not as a distant deity, but as a close, listening, loving creator, that the storm inside me began to settle. I shared how the 5 daily prayers aren't just rituals, but lifelines. How the act of placing your head on the ground in Sujood breaks your ego, but repairs your soul. I explained how fasting isn't just about hunger, it's about control, discipline, and feeling connected to something greater than yourself. She listened without interruption, her expression slowly softening, as if my words were pouring into the cracks she had hidden for years. Then I told her about the moment I truly felt peace for the first time. At Fajr, when the world is still asleep and everything is quiet except your whisper to Allah. That silence is like medicine. It's when your heart finally gets to speak without the noise of the world interrupting. That moment, I said, isn't just peaceful, it's sacred. She leaned back and said, I don't know what that feels like, but I want to. And I realized then that peace isn't something you describe to someone, it's something they feel when they're near it. Maybe, just maybe, she had already started feeling it and didn't even know it yet. She didn't grow up religious. In fact, belief in God was something she had always seen as optional, something people leaned on when life got hard or when they had nothing else to hold on to. For her, peace was supposed to come from freedom, the ability to choose your path, chase your dreams, and express your truth. And yet, with all of that, she still felt a restlessness she couldn't escape. There was always a voice in her heart asking, is this all there is? A voice she tried to silence with distractions, success, even self-care routines. But nothing filled the silence at night. That was when the questions came back, and eventually, she admitted to herself, maybe peace wasn't something you create. Maybe it was something you're given. The first time she heard the Quran, it wasn't in a lecture or at a religious event. It was early morning, just before sunrise, when she was staying in a Muslim-majority country. The window of her hotel room was slightly open, and the world outside was still asleep. Then, suddenly, she heard it. A voice echoing through the dawn, unlike anything she had ever heard before. It wasn't loud or aggressive, it was calm. Excuse me, is my phone? It was come off 9. It's okay, Dedic, it's okay. They found 30,000 vapor. That's Colombia. It's a week, it's coming off control. She didn't know what this feeling was. She had heard so many songs, seen so many speeches, but nothing had ever made her cry like that. It wasn't sadness, it was something purer, something deeper. She later found out that what she heard was a man reciting the Quran, the words of the book that Muslims believe to be directly from God. And somehow those words reached a place inside her that she didn't even know existed, a place that had been closed for years. She didn't convert that day, but her heart cracked open, her assumptions shattered, and the wall she had built between herself and belief started to crumble. All because of a verse she couldn't understand, but her soul did. She started asking questions she never thought she would care about. Why do Muslims pray 5 times a day? Why do they fast? Why do so many of them smile even when they're going through so much? These weren't academic questions, they were personal. She wasn't studying Islam, she was observing it. Quietly, carefully. What struck her most wasn't the rituals, but the reasons behind them. She saw people who had far less than she did, financially, socially, emotionally, yet they walked with a calmness she had been searching for her whole life. They seemed anchored in something. It wasn't that their lives were perfect, but that their hearts weren't shaken by imperfection. And that stirred something deep inside her. One day, she joined a Muslim friend for a simple meal during Ramadan. There was no grand invitation, no attempt to convert her, just kindness. She watched as everyone paused before eating to thank God, not just out of habit, but with presence, with gratitude. She noticed the way they sat together, not glued to their phones, but connected to each other and to something higher. It was a small moment, but it stayed with her. Later, she told me there was so much peace in that room. Not loud, just there. She started reading small parts of the Quran in English, curious but cautious. She expected to find commands and rules. What she found instead were words about the heart, about patience, about mercy, about turning back to the one who never turns away. She read verses about those who struggle in silence and how God is closer to them than they realize. She couldn't believe it. She said, "I've read so many books looking for answers, but this book feels like it's reading me." That's when I knew her journey had begun. Her heart, once heavy with questions, was now slowly filling with a peace she never thought she'd find. Not in the world, not in others, and not even in herself. But here it was, unfolding in front of her, not through debate, but through the quiet beauty of Islam simply being lived. She had always associated religion with control, restriction, and fear. Her experience with faith was distant, more about tradition than truth, more about appearance than soul. So when she began learning about Islam, it wasn't to find a new belief system. It was to understand why people who had nothing, who were going through war, poverty, and exile, still clung to it with such devotion. It confused her. Why would someone still say Alhamdulillah when their world was falling apart? Why would anyone bow their head in prayer while bombs fell outside? What kind of strength was that? And where did it come from? She wasn't ready to believe, but she couldn't ignore the questions stirring in her heart. Then came a moment that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a miracle in the sky. It was something simple, yet it struck her deeper than anything else ever had. She was in a Muslim home, visiting during a time of grief. A loved one had passed away. There was pain, yes. Tears, yes. But there was also calm. There were prayers being whispered. There was a kind of patience she had never seen before. And in the middle of that grief, the words spoken were not of despair, but of hope. Hope in reunion, in Allah's mercy, in something beyond this life. That's when she said to me, "Your people, they grieve differently." I told her it wasn't us. It was our faith. It was Islam that taught us that nothing in this life is lost, that every tear, every trial, every breath is known to Allah, that no suffering goes unseen, that even the hardest goodbyes are temporary. I explained that peace doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means having a purpose inside it, a direction, a belief that turns heartbreak into elevation. That's why we carry on. Not because we're strong, but because our faith holds us. That day, she didn't ask for proof. She had seen it, not in words, but in action. In the way we face loss without losing ourselves. In the way we stand, even when our hearts are breaking. That was the moment she stopped viewing Islam as a religion of rules and began seeing it as a way to truly live. Peaceful, grounded, real. She began to realize that peace wasn't something you find in silence or solitude. It was something your soul recognizes when it finally hears the truth. For years, she had tried everything to find peace. Therapy, travel, relationships, yoga, even isolation. but nothing ever settled her heart. She would feel moments of relief, but never something lasting. Something always pulled her back into restlessness. It wasn't until she witnessed Islam in action, how Muslims turn to prayer in joy and in grief, how they say Alhamdulillah even when things go wrong, how they rely on God as if He's right beside them, that she saw a kind of peace this world never gave her. What touched her most wasn't the rituals themselves, but the sincerity behind them. She noticed how Muslims prepare for prayer, washing their hands and faces with care, as if entering a sacred meeting. She noticed how they stand shoulder to shoulder, rich or poor, black or white, equal before the Creator. She felt something stir in her as she listened to a young girl recite a verse from the Quran, not understanding the words, but feeling their power. There was no performance, no show, just belief, just presence. And in that, she saw a glimpse of the peace she had spent her whole life chasing. She started to realize that Islam didn't promise a life free of hardship, it promised meaning inside the hardship. That was something she had never considered before, that pain could have purpose, that waiting could be rewarded, that patience wasn't weakness, it was a form of strength that connected you directly to Allah. And that changed her. Slowly, quietly, but deeply. For the first time, she understood that peace was never about perfect circumstances. It was about surrender. It was about letting go of the need to control everything and trusting that Allah's plan is better than anything we could write for ourselves. She began to walk differently, speak differently, even think differently. Not because she converted, but because her heart had tasted something real, something unshakable, the kind of peace that doesn't leave when life gets hard, but only grows stronger. And it was Islam that brought her there, without pressure, without force, just truth, gently guiding her home. She didn't make a grand announcement. There was no viral video, no emotional declaration, but something had changed, quietly, deeply. She started waking up before sunrise just to listen to the peaceful call to prayer. She found herself reflecting more, speaking less, and searching for silence in a world that never stopped screaming. The woman who once laughed at the idea of religion was now moved to tears by verses she couldn't even fully understand. And that's the beauty of it. Islam didn't demand her to change overnight. It simply met her where she was, with mercy, with calm, with truth that doesn't shout, but settles gently into the heart. Her journey wasn't about conversion, it was about connection. A connection to something that had been missing her entire life. Islam gave her words for what her soul had been feeling all along. It showed her that strength doesn't come from pretending to have it all together, but from admitting your weakness in front of the one who created you. She realized that surrender wasn't loss. It was the beginning of real freedom, and that this peace, this indescribable, soul-healing calm, wasn't man-made. It was divine. She told me once, I used to think religion was about control. Now I see it's about release, releasing pain, fear, ego, and finding something greater. And I knew then her heart had changed. Maybe she hadn't taken the Shahada yet, but she was already being guided. Not by people, but by Allah Himself. That's how He works. Sometimes He doesn't pull you with rules or debates. He pulls you with peace, the kind that seeps into your heart during Sujood, the kind that makes you cry without knowing why, the kind that tells you you're finally home. That this was her journey, not loud, not public, but pure, a journey from doubt to clarity, from noise to stillness. And it all began with a question. What does peace feel like to you? The answer, as she found out, wasn't in the world. It was in Islam. In the end, her journey wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about discovering who she truly was. Beneath the noise, the pressure, the doubt, Islam didn't change her by force, it invited her with peace. It answered her silent questions and touched the part of her soul that had been waiting quietly for years. She came looking for meaning, and what she found was deeper than she could have imagined. She found a calm that no success or freedom had ever given her. She found a God who listens, who heals, and who never left her, even when she didn't believe in him. And maybe that's the beauty of guidance. It doesn't come with lightning or loud declarations. Sometimes it comes gently. Through one question, one verse, one moment of silence before Fajr. And in that moment, a heart begins to soften and the journey toward truth begins. Thank you for watching this story, not just with your eyes, but with your heart. If you felt something today, even the smallest spark, let it guide you. Because sometimes the questions we're afraid to ask are the ones that lead us home. May Allah guide all hearts searching for peace, and may we be among those who recognize it when it finds us. Ameen.